Captain Clayton Osmond, the JetBlue pilot, the captain, in fact, subdued by passengers, now being charged with a felony that could send him to prison. He could go to jail, to prison, in fact, for 20 years if he is convicted of interfering with the flight crew. But already friends and co-workers are speculating something caused him to lose his mental capacity here. So what could have happened? NBC4's Gordon Tokumatsu turns to mental health professionals to learn why some people lose control.
In today's camera-laden world, they turn into viral videos instantly. Often highly educated professionals like JetBlue pilot Clayton Osmond tied down and wheeled off his own plane. Or Jason Russell, well-respected filmmaker, naked, shouting incoherently on a San Diego sidewalk. In its most violent incarnation, allegedly murderous rampages by Sergeant Robert Bales, accused of killing 17 Afghan civilians.
People just can only take so much. All the stuff that's going around, man, yeah, it's bound to be stress, you know?
Most of this is predictable.
Turns out there may be something to the theory that these episodes reflect our era of sluggish economies and challenging workplaces. A recent study says 1 in 5 adults between 18 and 25 experienced diagnosable mental illness last year.
They're working longer hours. They have less people they're working with to deal with the economic factors of what's going on.
People can't take a minute to slow down. I think that just makes people crack.
To be clear, chemical imbalances or missed medications are often at the root of these incidents. Such was the case of a Dallas flight attendant reportedly suffering from bipolar disorder and off her meds when she started shrieking over the intercom a couple of weeks ago. But some psychologists wonder what underlies the frequency of such meltdowns.
Sometimes stress will push you to the point where those become manifest or come out.
And then we snap. Experts say it doesn't take a mental health professional to spot the precursors to someone losing control. If you see this in a relative, coworker, or friend, it's time to take action before the stress of daily life does it for you. That psychologist, Dr. Lipson, says we're fascinated by stories like this because they make us wonder, just how close am I to snapping like that in public? In a stressful environment, maybe closer than you thought. Gordon Tokumatsu, NBC4 News.
And the gentleman that Gordon talked to, renowned forensic psychologist Glenn Lipson, is in studio with us tonight. And first of all, welcome. Thank you for coming in. Are there warning signs that lead up to someone snapping just like that?
Well, one of the things we like to say is finger snap, but not people. So the signs we look for include changes in the quality of contact. We look for obsession. We look for difficulty sleeping. We look for changes in sleeping and waking patterns. Someone is unable to sleep, or they wake up prematurely and keep waking up. And these are signs that someone's struggling with something and they're beginning to lose their routine.
You think perhaps the flight crew had noticed this with the captain before they got on board?
I know that occasionally people will get tired and you don't know quite what's going on, so they might have not noticed something. Hindsight's 20/20, and very often when we look back and we put together the pieces, these signs then are apparent. They're not always apparent at that very moment that you're going into the cockpit with someone.
Are you surprised this captain is being charged with a felony now, and if convicted, could in fact spend 20 years in prison?
Well, what we're looking at is charges are based on something that we call preponderance of the evidence. You have to be 51% positive that he has a charge. Conviction is beyond a reasonable doubt, so you have to be 95%. So what happens is there's a lot of room in between to try to understand what happened. Does he have responsibility for recognizing his own deterioration? Did he have that capacity? You know, what was going on? What had people said to him? Did they tell him, please don't fly, and then he chose to fly the plane anyway? We don't know all the facts yet.
And of course, we're looking at Sergeant Bales here as well. We've had several instances in the past couple of weeks where people have done things out of the ordinary. In Sergeant Bales' situation, there were 16, 17 people who were killed in Afghanistan. Again, he's awaiting trial on that as well. But how important is stress? What role does this play in all of that?
Stress is very important, especially one of the things we know about Sergeant Bales, at least allegedly, is he had a head injury. Head injuries make you more susceptible to alcohol. They make you more susceptible to stress. You had someone who had multiple tours of duty. And what we know is, just prior to this incident, he had seen a friend whose leg had been blown off. And that in and of itself, with the head injury, we don't know if he had anything to drink, but with the prior combat duty could have created, reached a breaking point with him. But it's the accumulation of all these traumas that eventually impact someone.
Let's go back to the captain a little bit. The CEO of JetBlue was on the Today Show today talking about what a spotless record this captain has. Don't, in fact, the pilots go through a physical every year? And isn't a component of that having to do with their mental health as well?
You're 100% correct, and they're screened for that. But one of the things you have to recognize is in the military or with pilots, they're very trained in appearing a certain way which is in charge. And sometimes the emotions or the problems which are underneath the surface, they're very good at avoiding. However, under certain times of stress and with some difficulties, especially if he had something going on organically, you're not able to keep up that facade.
What do you mean organically when you say that?
Organically, I'm referring to the brain. Some people are speculating, maybe someone slipped him a drug. That affects how the brain functions. Maybe he had a brain tumor. Maybe he had headaches he wasn't looking at. We don't know yet. But that keeping up of a false sense of who you are and portraying it and not getting in touch with your emotions often leads to them overtaking you at some point.
Before we go again, if you could just sort of give us kind of a laundry list of signs to look out for if someone's under a lot of stress or they're not sleeping well, what could lead up to a situation like this?
Well, one of the important things we have to remember to do is to pay attention. And if there's someone we care about or work with, we pay attention to changes in their behavior, in their conduct. We look for irritability. We look for outbursts. We look for someone who's previously been organized and now they're disorganized, someone who's been neat who suddenly gets messy. We look for changes in grooming, sometimes interpersonally. We look for someone who gets obsessed with something, a cause, a belief, and they're constantly talking about it when before they had a whole palette of things they would discuss. Now it's only one thing. These are signs that someone is trying to grab hold to something to avoid falling into disrepair.
Doctor, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time today.